Hi, this is Thomas LaFoe from the Instructional Media Center at the Mississippi State University Libraries. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at the VLOOKUP function in Microsoft Excel to see how it can be used to look up a calculated value and return a result from a table. For this tutorial, I will be using a spreadsheet I set up to calculate student grades. In the last column, I want to create a lookup function that returns a letter grade based on the student's final average. The first step in doing this is to create a table that contains my lookup values and letter grades. Two criteria of the lookup function are that the lookup values are listed in the first column of the table, and the values need to be listed in ascending order, starting with 0, and in this case, ending with 90%. I'm going to go ahead and title this table Grading Scale, just to set it apart from the rest of the spreadsheet. On the next line, I'm going to put my first percentage, which is 0%. Then I'm going to go to 60%, 70%, 80%, and 90%. It's very important to include this percentage because you'll notice if I select these cells, it's actually listing these as a percentage, which means that this is actually 0.60 as opposed to 60 and then a decimal. Very important if you're using this for a percentage-based scale. In the cells next to it, I'm going to put the corresponding letter grades. And now we're ready to create our lookup function. Right next to my first grade, I'm going to click to select that cell. Then I'm going to go to Formulas, Lookup and Reference, and then I'm going to choose VLOOKUP. If you do not see the VLOOKUP function in this list, you can always go to the Insert Function box. Then you can type VLOOKUP and press Enter. This will search the functions, and then you can select VLOOKUP from this box here. When the function arguments box opens up, you'll first want to put in the lookup value. In this case, I want to click on my first grade, which is in cell K5, and then I want to select my table array. I'm going to move this box out of the way so that we can see our table in the background. And then I'm just going to select the values and the letter grades. One key step here, if you're using the autofill handle to move this function, is we want to make sure that this reference is absolute. To do that, we press F4 on the keyboard, and it puts these dollar signs in. This means that when the formula moves with the autofill handle, it's always going to come back and look, in this case, at M6 to N10. The column index number refers to the column in the table where the result can be found. In this case, the VLOOKUP is going to look at the percentages in the first column and return the letter grade from the second column. So we need to indicate that 2, or the second column, is where that value can be found. The range lookup is optional. If you leave it blank or enter true, it's going to return the closest match in that first column. If you type in false, it will only return an exact match. In this case, the percentages are all over the place, so we want it to just return the highest value available. We're going to leave this out, and we can see in the function arguments box that the formula result is A. We're going to click OK, and you can see that returns that value. Now I'm going to use my autofill handle to fill this down for the rest of the gradebook. One problem you may run into is not putting in these absolute references. In this case, for the table array, I'm just going to select the table without pressing F4 or making this an absolute reference. Now when I click OK, it works fine for my first value, but when I use my autofill handle, you can see that then I get this error here. This is because if we look at these cells, so the first cell is looking at M6 through M10, which is the correct range, but then my second formula is looking at M7 through N11. And the same thing is happening down here to where when we get to the bottom or to the middle here, it's actually looking at M19 through N24, which obviously has no value. If this happens and you run into this error, you can delete these cells here, go back to your first lookup function, and in the formula bar, you can highlight that range and press F4, or you can click the little FX button, which opens up the function arguments box, highlight the table array, and press F4. Click OK. And now your autofill handle should work fine. I hope this tutorial has shed some light on the VLOOKUP function in Excel. If you have any questions or suggestions for future tutorials, you can leave them in the comments section below or visit our website at library.msstate.edu/imc.